The sky was a canvas of endless blue, untouched by the chaos that would soon unfold. Beneath it, humanity lived in harmony, their hearts pure, their spirits unbroken. They knew nothing of war, greed, or the dark arts. The world was a reflection of the divine, a paradise where the boundaries between heaven and earth were thin, almost non-existent. But high above, in the realms of light, the Watchers grew restless. She stood at the edge of the celestial realm, her wings shimmering like liquid silver. Her name was Serial, one of the Watchers tasked with observing humanity. She had always been curious, her gaze lingering a little too long on the world below. The others warned her. Humans were fragile, their hearts easily swayed by temptation. But Serial couldn't help herself. There was something about them, something raw and beautiful, that called to her. "Why do you linger here, Serial?" A voice boomed behind her. It was Shemahaza, the leader of the Watchers, his presence commanding, and his eyes sharp as daggers. "You know our duty is to watch, not to interfere." Serial turned to him, her expression defiant. "And what if watching is no longer enough? What if we were meant to do more?" Shemahaza's gaze softened, but only for a moment. "You speak of dangerous things. The divine order is not to be questioned." But Serial wasn't alone in her curiosity. Azazel, another Watcher, had already begun to experiment with the forbidden. He had descended to the earth in secret, teaching humans the art of crafting weapons and adorning themselves with jewels. The results were intoxicating. Humans, once simple and pure, now glimmered with newfound power. Azazel returned to the celestial realm, his eyes alight with a fire that could not be extinguished. "They are capable of so much more," Azazel whispered to Serial one night, his voice trembling with excitement. "Imagine what they could become if we showed them the way." Serial hesitated. She knew the risks, the consequences of defying the divine order. But the pull was too strong. Together, she and Azazel convinced a group of Watchers to join them. 200 in total. They descended to the earth, their celestial forms casting long shadows over the land. The humans welcomed them with awe and reverence. The Watchers, in turn, shared their knowledge, secrets of the stars, the mysteries of the earth, and the power to shape the world. But with knowledge came corruption. The humans, once innocent, now craved power. They built cities of stone and metal, waged wars, and turned against one another. And then came the Nephilim. Born from the union of Watchers and human women, the Nephilim were giants, their strength unmatched, their hunger insatiable. They ravaged the earth, consuming everything in their path. The harmony of creation was shattered, replaced by chaos and despair. High above, the heavens trembled. The divine order had been broken, and the consequences would be dire. But for Serial, there was no turning back. She had made her choice, and now she would face the fallout. As the first drops of rain fell from the sky, a rain that would soon become a flood, Serial looked up, her heart heavy with regret. She had sought to elevate humanity, but instead, she had brought them to the brink of destruction. And somewhere, in the midst of the chaos, a man named Enoch watched, his heart filled with a quiet resolve. He would be the one to bridge the gap between heaven and earth, to restore what had been lost. But that was a story for another time. Enoch was not like the others. While the world around him descended into chaos, he remained steadfast, his spirit unshaken by the corruption that had taken root. He was a shepherd, a man of simple means, but his heart burned with a quiet fire, a longing for something greater, something beyond the material world. One night, as he lay beneath the stars, Enoch felt a strange pull, as if the heavens themselves were calling to him. The air grew thick, and the ground beneath him seemed to tremble. Before he could react, a blinding light enveloped him, and he was lifted from the earth, carried into the celestial realms. When the light faded, Enoch found himself standing in a place unlike anything he had ever seen. The sky was a tapestry of swirling colors, and the ground beneath his feet shimmered like liquid gold. Before him stood a figure, radiant and awe-inspiring, with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of the ages. "Do not be afraid, Enoch," the figure said, his voice both gentle and commanding. "You have been chosen to bear witness to the truths of the heavens and the earth. What you see here, you must share with those below." Enoch fell to his knees, overwhelmed. "Who are you?" he whispered. "I am Metatron, the scribe of the divine," the figure replied. "And you, Enoch, are to become a bridge between worlds." Metatron led Enoch through the celestial realm, showing him visions of the past, present, and future. He saw the creation of the world, the fall of the Watchers, and the rise of the Nephilim. He witnessed the suffering of humanity, their hearts darkened by the knowledge the Watchers had bestowed upon them. But amidst the darkness, Enoch also saw glimpses of light, moments of courage, compassion, and hope. He saw a path, faint but undeniable, that led back to the divine. "The Watchers have disrupted the balance," Metatron explained. "Their actions have brought chaos to the earth. But there is still hope. You must deliver a message to them, Enoch. They must face the consequences of their choices." Enoch's heart ached as he thought of the Watchers. He had heard the stories, seen the destruction they had wrought, but he also sensed their regret, their longing for redemption. "What will happen to them?" Enoch asked. Metatron's expression grew solemn. "They will be judged, and their fate will be sealed. But their story is not yet over. Even in their fall, there is a lesson for all of creation." As Enoch absorbed these words, he felt a surge of determination. He would deliver the message, no matter the cost. But first, he needed to understand the full scope of what had transpired. Metatron led him to a vast library, its shelves filled with scrolls and books that glowed with an otherworldly light. "These are the records of the heavens," Metatron said. "Here, you will find the answers you seek." Enoch spent what felt like an eternity in the library, studying the ancient texts. He learned of the Watchers' origins, their purpose, and their fall. He discovered the secrets of the Nephilim and the dark forces that now threaten the earth. And he began to understand the deeper, hidden truths, the Gnostic wisdom that lay beneath the surface of the story. The Watchers were not merely fallen angels. They were symbols of the human struggle, the eternal battle between light and darkness, spirit and matter. Their fall was a reflection of humanity's own descent into ignorance and illusion. As Enoch closed the final scroll, he felt a profound sense of clarity. He knew what he had to do. Metatron appeared once more, his presence filling the room. "It is time, Enoch. Return to the earth and deliver the message. The fate of the Watchers and of humanity rests in your hands." With a final nod, Enoch was enveloped in light once more. When he opened his eyes, he was back on the earth, the stars above him twinkling as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. Enoch rose to his feet, his heart pounding with purpose. He would find the Watchers, confront them with the truth, and offer them a chance at redemption. But he knew the road ahead would not be easy, for the Watchers were not the only ones who had fallen. The Nephilim still roamed the earth, their hunger insatiable, their power unmatched. And somewhere in the shadows, darker forces stirred, forces that sought to keep humanity trapped in ignorance and fear. But Enoch was ready. He had seen the light, and he would not rest until he had shared it with the world. The earth was a shadow of what it once was. Where there had been lush fields and pristine rivers, now there were barren wastelands and blood-stained soil. The Nephilim roamed freely, their towering forms casting long, ominous shadows over the remnants of human civilization. Enoch moved through this desolate landscape, his heart heavy but his resolve unshaken. He had been traveling for days, guided by an inner compass that led him toward the Watchers. He knew they were hiding, scattered across the earth, their once glorious forms now tarnished by guilt and fear. But Enoch also knew they could not hide forever. The divine order demanded justice, and he was its messenger. Finally, he found them, or rather, they found him. Enoch was resting by a small fire when a sudden gust of wind extinguished the flames. He looked up to see a figure emerging from the darkness. It was Serial, her wings now tattered, and her eyes filled with sorrow. "You should not have come here, Enoch," she said, her voice trembling. "There is nothing left for you to see." Enoch stood, his gaze steady. "I have seen everything, Sariel. The heavens have shown me the truth. You cannot hide from it." Sariel's shoulders slumped, and for a moment she looked like a wounded bird, broken and lost. But then her expression hardened. "You think you understand, but you don't. We never meant for this to happen. We only wanted to help them. And yet, look at what your help has wrought," Enoch replied, gesturing to the desolation around them. "The Nephilim, the wars, the suffering, this is the legacy of your actions." Sariel turned away, her wings trembling. "We were wrong. I know that now. But it's too late to undo what has been done." Enoch stepped closer, his voice softening. "It's never too late to seek redemption. The heavens have sent me to offer you a choice. Face judgment and make amends, or continue to hide and let the darkness consume you." Before Sariel could respond, a deep, rumbling voice interrupted them. "Redemption, judgment. You speak as if you have the right to decide our fate." Enoch turned to see Azazel emerging from the shadows, his once majestic form now twisted and dark. His eyes burned with defiance, but there was something else there too, something Enoch recognized as fear. "I do not decide your fate, Azazel," Enoch said. "I am merely the messenger. The choice is yours." Azazel laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "And what choice is that? To be cast into the abyss, imprisoned for eternity? No, Enoch. I will not bow to your so-called justice." Enoch's heart ached as he looked at Azazel. He had once been a being of light, a guardian of the heavens. Now, he was a shadow of his former self, consumed by pride and regret. "There is still hope, Azazel," Enoch said. "But you must let go of your pride. You must face the consequences of your actions." Azazel's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, it seemed as though he might attack. But then he turned away, his wings folding around him like a shield. "Leave us, Enoch. We have nothing more to say to you." Enoch hesitated, his heart heavy with sorrow. He had hoped to reach them, to offer them a path to redemption. But he could see now that they were not ready. Their pride, their fear, their guilt, it was all too much. As he turned to leave, Sariel called out to him. "Enoch, wait." He stopped, looking back at her. Her eyes were filled with tears, but there was a glimmer of something else. Something like hope. "Tell me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is there truly a way back? A way to make things right?" Enoch nodded. "There is always a way, Sariel, but it begins with facing the truth." Sariel looked at Azazel, then back at Enoch. "I will think on your words. But for now, you must go. The Nephilim are near, and they will not show you the same mercy." Enoch nodded, his heart heavy, but his resolve unshaken. He had done what he could. The rest was up to them. As he walked away, he could feel their eyes on him, their presence lingering like a shadow. He knew this was not the end. The Watcher's story was far from over, and his own journey was just beginning. But for now, he had another task. The Nephilim were growing stronger, their hunger insatiable. If left unchecked, they would consume the earth and everything on it. Enoch tightened his cloak and pressed on, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The heavens had shown him the path, but it was up to him to walk it. And walk it he would, no matter the cost. The Nephilim were unlike anything Enoch had ever encountered. Towering over the landscape, their massive forms cast long, jagged shadows that seemed to swallow the light. Their eyes glowed with a feral hunger, and their roars echoed like thunder, shaking the very ground beneath Enoch's feet. They were the offspring of the Watchers and human women, a grotesque fusion of the divine and the mortal, and they had become the embodiment of chaos. Enoch moved cautiously through the ruins of a once thriving village, now reduced to rubble and ash. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the silence was broken only by the distant cries of the Nephilim. He knew he was walking into a trap, but he had no choice. The Nephilim had to be stopped, and he was the only one who could do it. As he approached the center of the village, he saw them, 3 Nephilim, their hulking forms silhouetted against the setting sun. They were feasting on the remains of their latest victims, their monstrous jaws dripping with blood. Enoch's stomach churned, but he forced himself to remain calm. He had faced darkness before, and he would face it again. "You should not have come here, little man," one of the Nephilim growled, its voice deep and guttural. "This is our world now." Enoch stood his ground, his voice steady. "This world does not belong to you. It belongs to the Creator, and I am here to restore the balance." The Nephilim laughed, a sound that sent shivers down Enoch's spine. "The Creator? What does the Creator care for this world? He abandoned it long ago?" Enoch's heart ached at the words. He knew the Nephilim were wrong, but he also understood their pain. They were the product of a broken world, a world that had lost its way. And yet, they were not beyond redemption. "You were not meant for this," Enoch said, his voice filled with compassion. "You were born of light and shadow, but it is not too late to choose the light." The Nephilim hesitated, their glowing eyes narrowing as they studied Enoch. For a moment, it seemed as though his words had reached them. But then the largest of the 3 stepped forward, its massive fists clenched. "Enough of your lies," it roared. "We are the masters of this world, and you are nothing but a speck beneath our feet." With a deafening roar, the Nephilim charged, their massive forms shaking the ground with each step. Enoch braced himself, his mind racing. He had no weapons, no army, no way to fight them. But he had something far more powerful, faith. As the Nephilim closed in, Enoch closed his eyes and whispered a prayer. "Creator, guide me. Show me the way." In that moment, a blinding light erupted from the heavens, enveloping Enoch in its radiant embrace. The Nephilim stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the light. When it faded, Enoch was no longer alone. Standing beside him was a figure of pure light, its form shifting and shimmering like a living flame. It was Metatron, the scribe of the divine, his presence filling the air with a sense of awe and reverence. "You have done well, Enoch," Metatron said, his voice echoing like 1,000 bells. "But the time has come for the Nephilim to face their judgment." The Nephilim roared in defiance, their massive forms lunging toward Metatron. But with a single wave of his hand, Metatron sent them flying, their bodies crashing into the rubble with a force that shook the earth. "You were born of pride and rebellion," Metatron said, his voice filled with sorrow. "But even you are not beyond redemption. Surrender, and you will be given a chance to atone." The Nephilim hesitated, their glowing eyes filled with confusion and fear. For a moment, it seemed as though they might listen. But then the largest of them rose to its feet, its eyes burning with hatred. "We will never surrender," it roared, charging toward Metatron once more. Metatron sighed, his expression filled with regret. "Then you leave me no choice." With a wave of his hand, Metatron opened a portal to the abyss, a swirling vortex of darkness that seemed to devour the very light around it. The Nephilim screamed as they were pulled into the portal, their massive forms disappearing into the void. When the portal closed, the air grew still, and the village was silent once more. Enoch looked at Metatron, his heart heavy with sorrow. "Was there no other way?" he asked. Metatron placed a hand on Enoch's shoulder, his touch warm and comforting. "There is always another way, Enoch, but sometimes the path to redemption is long and difficult. The Nephilim will have their chance, but for now, they must face the consequences of their actions." Enoch nodded, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The Nephilim were gone, but the world was still broken. The Watchers were still hiding, their fate uncertain. And the darkness that had taken root in the hearts of humanity still lingered. But Enoch knew he could not give up. The heavens had chosen him for a reason, and he would not rest until he had fulfilled his mission. As Metatron faded into the light, Enoch turned and walked away, his heart filled with a quiet resolve. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but he was ready. For he was Enoch, the bridge between worlds, and his journey was far from over. The world was quiet, but it was not the quiet of peace. It was the quiet of a storm brewing, of a world holding its breath. Enoch stood atop a mountain, the wind whipping through his hair as he gazed out over the land. Below him, the earth lay scarred and broken, a testament to the chaos that had consumed it. But Enoch saw something else, a glimmer of hope, faint but undeniable. He had come far since his first encounter with the Watchers. He had faced the Nephilim, confronted the darkness, and delivered the message of the heavens. But his journey was not yet complete. There was one final task, one final truth to uncover. As he stood there, a familiar presence filled the air. Metatron appeared beside him, his form radiant and serene. "You have done well, Enoch," Metatron said, his voice filled with pride. "But there is one more thing you must do." Enoch turned to him, his heart pounding with anticipation. "What is it?" Metatron's gaze was steady, his eyes filled with a deep, unspoken wisdom. "You must return to the Watchers. They are ready to hear the truth." Enoch's breath caught in his throat. He had not seen the Watchers since their confrontation, and he had often wondered what had become of them. But he knew this was not a task he could face alone. "Will you come with me?" he asked. Metatron shook his head. "This is your journey, Enoch. You must face them as a man, not as a messenger of the heavens. Only then will they truly understand." Enoch nodded, his resolve hardening. He knew what he had to do. The Watchers were gathered in a hidden valley, their once glorious forms now faded and worn. They had been waiting, their hearts heavy with guilt and regret. When Enoch appeared, they turned to him, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. Serial stepped forward, her wings trembling. "Enoch," she whispered, "why have you come?" Enoch looked at her, his heart filled with compassion. "I have come to offer you a choice," he said, "a chance to make amends." The Watchers exchanged uneasy glances, their voices rising in a chorus of doubt and fear. "How can we make amends?" Azazel demanded, his voice filled with bitterness. "We have destroyed the world. There is no redemption for us." Enoch stepped closer, his gaze steady. Redemption is not about undoing the past. It is about choosing a different path, a path of light and truth. The heavens have shown me that even the darkest souls can find their way back. The Watchers fell silent, their eyes filled with a glimmer of hope. For the first time in centuries, they allowed themselves to believe that there might be a way out of the darkness. "What must we do?" Serial asked, her voice trembling. Enoch smiled, his heart filled with a quiet joy. "You must surrender," he said. "Surrender your pride, your guilt, your fear. Only then can you be reborn." The Watchers hesitated, their hearts torn between hope and despair. But one by one, they stepped forward, their heads bowed in submission. "We surrender," Serial said, her voice filled with a quiet resolve. "We are ready to face our judgment." Enoch nodded, his heart swelling with pride. He had done it. He had reached them. As the Watchers surrendered, a blinding light filled the valley, enveloping them in its radiant embrace. When the light faded, the Watchers were gone, their forms transformed into pure energy, their souls returning to the heavens. Enoch stood there, his heart filled with a profound sense of peace. The Watchers had found their redemption, and the world was one step closer to healing. But Enoch knew his journey was not yet over. The earth was still broken, and humanity still struggled in the darkness. But he also knew that there was hope. The light had returned, and with it, the promise of a brighter future. As he turned and walked away, the wind whispered through the valley, carrying with it the echoes of a new beginning. Enoch smiled, his heart filled with a quiet joy. For he was Enoch, the bridge between worlds, and his journey was far from over.